Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an anime podcast only about Kisniver.
I've changed my mind. I've had a change of heart. I think frame by frame would be the appropriate response to that amazing piece of art.
Okay, but true talk, I did think the anime we watched needed a relationship chart.
Oh my god, it needed so many charts.
No, it didn't need a relationship chart.
All right, let me introduce it. We'll talk about. Hello, everybody.
So would disagree.
We are Baka. We are an anime podcast where every 2 weeks we discuss it in anime. April Fool's has come and gone. We're not actually about Kisniver. We'll never go back to Kisniver. Jason won't let us. He'll quit the show. So yeah, we watch a new anime every 2 weeks. We discuss it in this podcast. We turn the discussion over to our listeners. That's you. That's part of our Baka Club. And we see what we can get. We are talking about the second half of Summertime Rendering, episodes 13 through 25. In our last podcast episode, we discussed part 1. We all really liked it, but we still disagreed a lot about it. Now we're going to part 2. We're going to do it again. And to do that, I need the help of my co-host. First off, we have the red balloon to my Pennywise. It's Jeremy. Jeremy, what anime do you like or don't like that you kind of associate with Summertime Rendering?
So last time I mentioned ReZero. This time I'm going to go with the Higurashi when they cry. Gao?
Yeah.
I think that's the one we watched.
Yeah, it was.
That's a great pick.
Yeah, it definitely has some similar vibes. It's not as nasty, but it's close.
All right. We also have the dog to my thing from outer space. It's Jason. How are you, Jason? And what's your anime?
Doing pretty well. I wanted to get away from the ReZero theme. The monsters were so unique that I was like, you know what? Akira had an amazing take on like that kind of like telekinetic power and like forming things into what you need and going out of control. And so I love that movie. It should be on everyone's list. And that's what I would want to choose this week.
And yes, for new listeners, we are that old. Akira is beloved by all of us.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen it, yes, it's worth going back and watching.
Yeah, it is. It's a classic for a reason. My name is Troy, and I'm choosing To Your Eternity because I found a parallel in this anime about something that's observing. And I'll get into it. To Your Eternity, I really loved. I really loved the emotional resonance of it, and I found similar things. No, I didn't. But you know what? Let's go on.
Huh.
Yeah, I should.
Too bad I don't
find the
edit
emotional
this.
resonance here. Yeah, I got the emotional resonance to Your Eternity. We should move on. Anyway,
I'm going to pick another one.
you don't get to pick another one.
Ajin.
No.
Yeah. It's your shadow, and it's all about death. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't about that. It was literally about anti-death.
Right.
Well, kind of.
Let's move on.
That's what.
Oh, I
All
got
right.
another one.
Yes.
Kiss
An entire
Diver.
podcast of that.
For those who don't follow our Twitter, the Kisniver joke was from April Fool's Day.
We're gonna belabor it.
So when
And
this comes out, it's gonna be a little
Old, stale.
just like us.
I really, guys. So we're recording this on April Fool's Day, and
Yeah.
I don't know in the morning if I have the old profile pics for our Twitter account to set it back because I changed it to Kisniver pics, and I don't know if I saved a picture of Yui, the orange face we put on everything.
I have it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should have it. I got there in the first place, right?
Yeah.
We're fine.
It's fine.
Everyone go check our Twitter. See if I fixed it. At Baka Podcast. All right, let's talk about summertime rendering. Non-spoiler reviews. Jason, you're going first. Tell everyone what you thought of it, but don't spoil anything that happened in part 2. Thank you.
You're welcome. So anyways, the death of no, I'm just kidding. This anime asks you to pay attention to every detail, minute or large. And it does such a great job in its storytelling that a lot of the twists and turns you can see coming if you pay attention. But you have to pay attention. And there's some really cool twists that feel real good when they're executed, because not only was the setup done really well, but the justification for a lot of them are just really well explained, or they just really fit in the context of the story. I was really so I don't like cliffhanger endings, and this one does a really good job kind of not just tying up loose ends, but also a lot of anime just kind of end on a black screen, and I thought the end of 24 was the end, because that's how it felt like a lot of stories would end there. But anyways, the characters I became more endeared to. The story beats were fantastic, and the monsters are just such a great twist on what we normally see. So yeah, really enjoyed it.
All right, Jeremy, what'd you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. I was genuinely concerned that they were going to lose their momentum in, keeping me invested in these loops, but they did a great job. They didn't miss a beat. Every time a loop started, I was really invested in like what had happened to the characters, how they got here, what the surprises were. It was really well written and executed really well. I also think that they addressed some of the stuff that we were wondering about last time. Like one of the things we were wondering about was, Troy, you brought up the Shinpei not necessarily having any flaws, and it almost seems like the writers knew that, hey, maybe his flaws aren't really that clear. Let's make sure he describes his flaws fairly quickly in the second half, and that just cracked me up. But they did. I think that it gave him a little bit more dimension, and I wound up being more interested in his character and paying more attention to him. And maybe it was because of comprehending what his new flaws were. I don't know, but I liked it. I really enjoyed what they did throughout.
Let's put a pin in that.
Okay.
I also love what they did with forearms. Just had to say that.
It was pretty cool.
I like how hidden they kept it for as long, and then they slowly revealed more and more about him. Yeah. Anyways, go on. What'd you think, Troy?
This is some of the best storytelling we've seen in a long time. I mean, honestly, beat for beat, plot logic, setting up cliffhangers, twists, the time loop. There's enough stories now where it's starting to get some tropes into it, right? Mm-hmm. And this is breaking them. And it was already doing that in the first half, but it really pulls out all the stops in the second half. It made it so original for a time loop story. I love everything they're doing, except for what I complained about in part 1. I still don't really feel connected to the characters. I feel like I just feel the characters had to take a back seat. This story is packed. My notes are full. Full pages. Usually it's like 2/3 of a page. There's so much going on, and even trying to recap it, I'm a little intimidated by everything we have to go over. I think the characters just had to take backseat. I don't even think it's really bad writing, to the point where they have to have a character explain his character flaws out loud, and I'm like, I haven't seen that, and I'm not seeing it going forward. But thank you for telling me that's not really how you do that, but I appreciate you putting in an honest effort. It doesn't really bother me though, because like I said, the ending is so good, the story's great. I wish that part was there, but a lot of the dissatisfaction I was feeling in part 1 is mostly gone away just because the story is that good. And to touch on what Jason said, the fact they gave it a 25th episode, an epilogue episode to let it breathe. Thank you so much. I hate it when anime are just like, and we're done. Stuff is gonna happen, but don't worry about it. And I'm like, no. Let's take some time. Let's talk about this. They have an episode just to resolve the ending, and it's beautiful, and I love that. So I'm gonna give this. We're not doing scores here. I'm kidding.
No.
So
yeah,
the headcanon
I recommend
ending. The headcanon endings I'm not a big fan of. I know Jeremy loves them, but
Sometimes.
yeah, it depends. It depends how they're done. But I do hate where it feels like, man, you just needed like 10 more minutes, and you clearly didn't have the money for another episode. Where this was like, hey, we are taking the time to do an ending proper, and I think it deserves to be recognized because I do want it to be done when it can be done.
absolutely.
Okay. Not that anyone who made this is ever going to care what we say. Nor should they.
But it's out there.
It's out there. It's on the internet
Why
forever.
would you listen to Bakas?
Right?
All right. What did you guys think about the new opening and closing?
I like the visuals better, but I thought the music was better in the first half. Just my taste, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I watched it a few times. The ending was okay.
Yeah, I'm in exactly the same boat. I would just completely echo you. There's one little tiny thing about the intro that I thought was really funny, and I'll bring it up in more detail later. But like, it shows a collage of different characters crying, and it's like the females crying, and then there's a dude crying, and he's a dude that's really not important to the story. He's not a main character, and just the reason why he's there, at least in my opinion, it makes that whole OP really funny to me. But I'm not going to talk about it until we get to the spoiler-free section.
Spoiler, not free. There will be a spoiler section.
Yes. Or no, yes, you're right.
There's a bit of a tone shift from part 1 to part 2, and I thought the OP did a really good job of signaling that. And so I did appreciate the OP for that, because this kind of goes from a horror mystery to a suspenseful action anime, and it transitions it well. But the OP is definitely signaling you like, hey, there's going to be some anime fights coming up, and it kind of it foreshadows them and shows you like shots
Shadow.
from them.
Yeah.
So I did like the OP. The ending didn't grab me at all. I can't remember. I was on every time.
It's the one where the girl has like a really quivery voice when she sings. I actually kind of like it.
And I remember a lot of blue. A lot
Yeah,
of blue in it.
blue and white.
Like I said, it was on, but
Yeah.
it didn't get me. It didn't grab me at all. All right. Before we go to our not spoiler free section, also known as the spoiler section, our next anime we'll announce it now for those who are having to disembark from the podcast so they don't get spoiled.
It's Kisniver again.
Jason wants to make sure he saw everything correctly the first time. Revisit the chart.
Someday we're gonna get listeners who are like, no guys, Kisniver again. We need this to happen, and we're gonna have to do it. It's gonna be this inside joke that blows up in your face.
I know, right? We need to torture Jason.
If we ever do like the community picks, which would be fun, I could see that happening.
Guys, there's someone with like their fingers on the stop button. They're like, just say the dang name. It's Trigun Stampede. The next anime is Trigun Stampede. Now, I finished the first Trigun. Have you guys completed the first Trigun?
I've finished it a couple of times, but I need to finish it again just to refresh my memory.
Don't. I'm more saying it for anyone who hasn't. Down there for me right now. Because I've seen the first episode of Trigun Stampede, and it spoils everything that Trigun was keeping a secret in their first half. So you really do need to. Well, either
I'll get it done.
If you're going to watch the second half of Trigun, you need to do it before you start Trigun Stampede. If you're not, live your life.
You do you.
Early review. I'm not down with what Johnny Young Bosch is doing with Fascist Voice.
Ugh.
Just want to say that. We'll get into it more in 2 weeks. All right. Spoiler section for, again, Summertime Rendering, episodes 13 through 25, but of course, the first half as well. and To Your Eternity, ReZero, Higurashi When They Cry.
And Ajin.
No,
No, stop it.
but Kisniver, yes, Kisniver.
Oh, okay. Yes.
All right, so spoiler warning has been dropped. We will be spoiling everything from now on. If you are listening, we assume you are ready to be spoiled. All right, guys, we're going right into where we left off. Shinpei just died, and he brought back Ushio, and he's now on the 22nd. This is his 5th loop, and he appears before Nagumo. And again, Nagumo is actually Hizuru, who is also possessed by her twin brother Ryunosuke. One of the hardest parts about this anime is there are characters that are multiple people, and there are people that are multiple characters.
Yes.
And it gets hard. So, Shinpei. Let's talk about Shinpei in this half. Our main character, he's a time looper with an eye that observes reality and changes which multiverse reality he's in. And he's fighting shadow monsters that are taking over his home island. His best friend was killed. And now, what do you think of him?
I was very impressed. I think one of the things that stands out specifically with this anime is he doesn't get exponentially smarter because he's the protagonist. He's just able to use new information that sometimes still bites him. And I love that because they presented him as an everyman protagonist in the beginning, and he is still that at the end. He just has more information, but he's still just not only just a normal human, he's also just he can only think so well, right? The way he tackles stuff is very much how I would envision if I was in that position, I would do X. And
Right.
He does those things. And so I have very few, actually, I don't think I have any complaints watching him with the information that he has in these loops and his actions. And also when he does start doing superpowered stuff, there's not only a very good reason for it, but he suffers because of it. And I thought that was brilliant writing. And also his character flaw is so good. I can't believe how well they wrote that. It's just this overarching arc that he has to overcome by the end. It's so well done.
How could we miss that?
I liked Shinpei a lot.
Okay. But how do you really feel about his character flaw? I mean, I'm being serious. You just didn't care? Or...
No. His character flaw was a little contrived. I'll be honest. However, the thing is that he never really overcame it, if you will, if that was the spoken character flaw. But what I liked is how it wove into the story and how it affected Heine. That gave it justification for me. So I didn't think it was a great character flaw, but I did like the way it was implemented.
So for the character flaw, am I remembering? Well, am I remembering correctly that the character flaw was sometimes I stand back too far and I don't act? That's what it was?
Which leaves him with regrets.
Right. And I didn't necessarily get the sense that he was doing that in the first half. I got the sense that he was in an information gathering stage. Right? How are you supposed to act if you don't have enough information to act on? Well, then you're just impulsively acting. So I kind of understood why he wasn't acting, and I didn't see it as a flaw in the first half. And in the second half, he calls it out really quickly as oh, this is what I do, and I should have acted more. Essentially, is what he's saying by acknowledging this flaw verbally. And so it was kind of weird to me, but at the same time, I started to think, well, maybe they're referring to how he perceives himself and maybe how he's acted in other situations. Because I guess we do have a historical context of how when he left the island and he left Ushio, that to me, that's acting, right? He was acting because he wanted to have a different kind of relationship with her. And so he was going to place himself far away to separate them so that they weren't so close like siblings, and then it would be easier to develop a relationship, and also so that he could become independent and actually earn a relationship that way. So I saw acting even in his flashbacks, right? Not necessarily standing back thinking and not doing anything. So I don't know, as much as I brought it up in the intro, the more I think about it, the more I don't think it's actually a flaw, or at least a flaw that's been presented to us. It sounds like they're simply saying that it is a flaw. So I guess it's not really that satisfying. I think you might have me there.
So I think especially when he's describing this to everyone, I think he's specifically talking about the moment he went to Tokyo because of his desire for a relationship with Ushio, who's being raised by her father. He's been adopted, and he doesn't want them to have a familial bond, so he breaks it. But I think what he's saying is, I was fixing the big picture view of this relationship, and I never just told Ushio how I felt. Like, that would have been acting.
That's a good point.
Is, hey, I do love you. I'm going to go do this thing so I can fix our relationship. He kept that inside. He went and fixed the big picture, and that's what he does. I see the big picture, and I work off of that. But he forgot about, talking.
Yeah. It's the opposite of not seeing the forest for the trees. It's
right.
It's not seeing the trees for the forest.
Right.
I gotcha. So essentially,
Step bro, I'm stuck. No.
Yeah. So essentially, then it almost sounds like what he really has an issue with is delegating. In all honesty, because if he doesn't see the smaller picture, like doesn't see the trees and isn't able to like connect with Ushio on that closer level and say that, then it makes sense why all of a sudden he starts incorporating the rest of the squad, basically like his team, and he starts trying to give them jobs to do. Maybe that was what they were going for, as far as like when he starts seeing the trees for the forest, he starts having people be more active and take on bigger roles themselves.
So did complain that he wasn't giving him anything to do, and he felt bad for Shinpei that he was carrying everything by himself.
Yeah, he did. You're right. So maybe that's what they were trying to point at as a flaw.
Right. But then at the end, in the climax, he takes on the final thing on his own.
Well, he didn't really do it on his own. Like, I mean, he shared the burden with 3 other characters. Yeah. It wasn't until they all failed that he had to take it on his own.
So I guess in that statement, then, that the allowing Ryunosuke to drive and share a body with him is his character arc completion of I'm putting my faith in others.
Yeah, in that context, that would be,
I guess. Probably my biggest issue with him is that we never really see him deal with the fact that his love interest / adopted sister is dead. Ever. Like, he just doesn't deal with it.
That's what they dealt with in the first half. What are you talking about?
Did he deal with it, or was he chasing shadows?
To be
fair, the story didn't give him a lot of time to do it.
Yeah.
But he went to the wake. They had lots of conversations about Ushio and how he missed her, and there was some crying scenes. So
did he cry?
Pretty sure.
I don't remember,
to
be honest.
Him crying. But maybe. All right. Well, that's my thought. Shinpei is a good protagonist for the most part, except for that emotional bond. Again, I'm just not. I will say at the end, in the final episode, I felt joy for the characters, for Shinpei.
It's like pulling. There's a problem when it's like pulling teeth for Troy to say, "I felt." Whatever, name the emotion.
I'm trying to be honest, though. I'm trying to give it its fair due. The emotional swell at the very end, it was there. That worked.
It was there.
Okay. Up till that point, I just didn't have an emotional connection with any character in this anime. Okay. Along with Shinpei, we have Ushio. Now, again, this is Shadow Ushio. Every other Shadow character, with the exception of Heine, I will call Shadow character, but Ushio is almost always Shadow character unless I say human Ushio. Did anyone
and
notice the H's this time?
It's not in the subtitles. For subbed. It's not in the subtitles for subbed.
And I watched dub, so there were no text.
You still don't turn on subtitles?
No, I hate subtitles. So, why? Like, I understand what's being said.
Because
through
you're
the
like
speaker.
me. We have noisy children, and it just makes life better.
I don't watch violent, bloody anime.
No. I'm saying just like I'm trying to listen to these two characters have a conversation, and I
Oh.
can't
Children
hear them.
screaming in the other room.
I
instead of-
usually have headphones on if I'm going to do it. So
Jason has his
watch TV on a TV.
little chamber.
oh yeah, I don't watch our shows on the TV. I usually do it either on the computer or on my phone.
And by the way, this is a normal thing. People have the subtitle revolution is here. People just turn on subtitles. It's weird now when I go to a film like a movie and like, where's the words?
Yeah.
Hey, you forgot to turn the words on, guys.
What are they saying?
I don't know. I don't know what Black Adam is saying.
It's so distracting for me. I can't do it because then I miss what's going on the screen. Then I got to rewind because I was reading.
Well, you don't have to read it if you can hear it. And then for that moment that you're like, what? Oh, it's right there. It's right there. Good.
I can see how that's handy, but it's so distracting. I can't help it. That's why I turn it off in cutscenes in video games. Like my kid gets irritated because he's like, "Where's the subtitles? I was watching that with you." It's like,
yeah,
like I no. Play it for yourself.
There are so like films. I've gone back and watched so many films, and now that I use subtitles, I'm like, that's what they said.
Exactly.
So many times.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, I need to have this on all the time.
Yep.
All right. So that was a good debate about subtitles that nobody came here for. Ushio, who is Shadow Ushio, but will always just be called Ushio. So what do you guys think of Ushio?
I really like this character. It's interesting because with Shadow Mio, there is a distinct, clear difference between human Mio and Shadow Mio in their personalities and their mannerisms. Even though they think and talk very similar, you can usually tell even without subtitles. And Ushio doesn't have that, and it leads into another debate that we're going to have later about data. But because of that, you really don't view her as another Shadow until she's doing some sort of wild thing with her hair or whatever. But she is much smarter than the other characters around her give her credit for. And also, I like that she's usually it's the protagonist that's like reckless and I'm gonna go do the thing because I'm the hero, and it's her that's doing it, and I love it. She's just so impulsive and doesn't like, I'm gonna do it because it's the right thing to do, whether it's the right time or not, which usually bites her in the butt. But her powers are cool and well defined. And I love her background as a Shadow as well. So, and then it leads great into episode 25, which you're right, it had a great emotional payoff. So, yeah, really like this character.
Yeah, Ushio's awesome. She does get benched for a little bit, which in some ways I was kind of sad, but in other ways it was very important for the story. She needed to be benched. And that was really cool. It allowed the story to do some interesting things. There's one little criticism I have for episode 25 regarding Ushio versus Shadow Ushio, but otherwise she was a consistent character that was entertaining and funny and impulsive and solved problems, but also got them into problems. And what a power scale. Like how she changed from her introduction, wherein like her first fight with Mio, where she doesn't even understand what she is. Mio stabs her Shadow, cuts her arm, right? She can't even handle just a regular Shadow. And then by the end of it, she is just going toe to toe with forearms and putting her fist through his back. And like, it's just, she's such a powerhouse. Very satisfying. It's very cool to watch.
honestly brought the best character here, and one I don't really have a complaint about. She's so colorful and vibrant. She has such a personality that her screen time, she steals the show almost every time she's on it. And
What's her character flaw?
She's not the main character. Not every character
flaw.
has to have a flaw.
I thought for you to like them, they need to have an arc.
Actually, she does. It's
Oh,
about
okay,
the
here
use
we
of
go.
violence. They actually do a good job with Ushio about the using the fist, and that she does change. Even in the
Actually,
final
you're right.
episode, she goes to punch him, and then she doesn't fully punch him, and you see that she has grown as a person, even though it's a whole different version of her.
Yeah, and it causes more problems. So bad arc. Should have followed through.
No, because they were able to go back in time and fix time. Yeah, no. It
Spoilers.
turned out. Oh my god! I've lost my pen. All right. So yeah, Ushio had an arc and one that was pretty well done. It's weird they set it up in the second half of the anime, sure,
Yeah.
but yeah. So meh. Our next character, the one that they're talking to, is Nagumo. Nagumo, Ryunosuke, is a writer who has come to this island to battle the shadows, who is from this island, but it's actually the character Hizuru and her twin brother Ryunosuke, who they swap control of the body, and we will find out. We'll explain how they are and how that all works. But what did you guys think of Nagumo and both versions?
Yeah, so Hizuru doesn't change much from the first half. And I really like her character. She's smart. She's able to discern and deduce things very quickly. So, like, you know, from her point of view, Ushio just appears out of nowhere in a very shadow-ish way, and doesn't immediately want to execute her. So, and also accepts Shinpei's explanation of what just happened by not just like, oh, I trust Shinpei, but no, A, B, and C lined up to create D. So this makes sense. Let's go with it. And the writing did a really good job of like compelling that for that character.
And it makes sense that she's so open-minded because she like has a thing that's 2 seconds in the future going on and it's seeing these shadows. So she's open-minded. So when she's like, oh, I'm time looping. Okay, I see the logic of that. And yes, you are.
Yeah. Ryunosuke is a great character. Kind of the impulsive of the two. But also the idea that he can kind of do superhuman feats inside her body, but she takes a toll for it. And the whole 2-second thing in the future is such a cool idea. So, but also like, yeah, most of the time they can't talk to each other because it's one controlling the other, so they have to record. But there's one moment where she's just like, this is really important. I need to talk to you directly. And I think the reason they don't do that is because it consumes their world to do that. And like, it's very difficult for them to pay attention to anything else besides their two. So, yeah, really, really fascinating character.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, like you said, even with Ushio, she seems more intelligent than people around her give her credit for. We also see that kind of with Mio sometimes, right? Where Shadow Mio notices things, says things, acts on things that indicate she's actually pretty smart. She's smarter than Mio normally acts. And then we have our main character, Shinpei, who is also very smart, makes plans, strategizes, and all this. And Nagumo is on a whole nother level. Like, this character, she is a genius. And the conclusions she comes to and how quickly that she puts things together is just astonishing. And it's a really cool thing to watch. So I really like her as a character. Ryunosuke, I mean, he's there for the fights, and the fights are great. So I really enjoy him as a character. But there is one thing that he said that kind of made me a little bit, I don't know, I'm still processing it. What he said was, it was at a point where he was talking to Shinpei and he says, you know, you're my senior. And Shinpei says, but wait a minute, you've been alive a lot longer than me. And he says, yeah, but I'm still just a freshman or whatever. You know, I'm still younger than you.
Middle schooler. I'm a middle schooler.
Middle
In
schooler.
English is what
Yeah.
I said.
Okay. Yeah. And so essentially what he was saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is when you become a shadow, you get locked into the age that your shadow is at. And even though you experience more time, you mentally do not change. You do not mature into
You
any
are
more
the
of an
data
adult.
that you were.
Right.
Correct. That's the impression I got from what he said. Does that sound right?
It fits Heine too.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that is correct and that fits Heine, oh my gosh, Shide is even worse. Like it is so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah. We'll get to it. But
Yeah.
I sent that throw up GIF meme
yeah,
for a
exactly.
reason.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, Ryunosuke was interesting because he gave me that like more rules about how the shadows work and how they aren't necessarily what you perceive. Just because somebody's been alive for 300 years, like Hiruko or Heine has, doesn't mean that they're not still that childish little kid that they were when they were copied. They're exactly the same, which is a very interesting rule, not one that I would expect.
This was my favorite character in part 1 and was still great. Doesn't need an arc because she's a side character, but a fun personality, and getting to meet Ryunosuke and him not just being like just this fighter was really fun too.
And really tragic, you know.
La-
A lot of
Mhm.
feels for this character later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some people. Okay, in part 1, when they were hanging up upside down, was that Hizuru or Ryunosuke?
Hizuru.
For sure.
Because Ryunosuke was the one that was always... Basically, she was saying, you asked why I hang upside down. It's because of the blood flow to my brain, brother. So I can think clearly.
I was gonna ask. I was wondering if it was Ryunosuke because I'm like, well, a middle schooler might believe something that's stupid.
Yeah. Nope. The genius.
All right.
The genius believes.
Well, then, never mind. Her very businesslike approach to everything is a great contrast to, you know, these characters who are freaking out and dealing with monsters, and she's just like analytical. And then Ryunosuke comes in and takes care of business, and you remember that he's just a middle schooler having to go through all this, and kind of feel bad for him.
Yeah. Yu Yu Hakusho.
All right. So, yeah, we learned Ushio can share. Well, we already know she can share memories, but she shares memories with Nagumo, basically catching her up on everything that's happened. This becomes a power that's used commonly with a lot of characters, so they start calling it pseudo-looping. Only Shinpei and Ushio are actually going through the time loop, but now everyone's getting their memories from every loop, so they might as well be looping as well. We see So, who we'll talk about later, but he confronts his father because we've learned his father is involved, and he gets brushed off and like, talk to me tonight. But then we see his father calling Forearm, who is also called Shide. So if you hear us say Shide or Forearm, it means the same character.
Mm-hmm.
Wink, wink, hint, hint.
Whatever you know what I mean.
So they go to repeat what they did last time, and they go to take out Shiori's family, and they're like, okay, we'll just catch Heine, who is Shiori at this point in the timeline, and we'll catch her for good this time. And
this is Ushio was supposed to hack Shiori.
That's right.
And that way she'd reach Heine and hack Heine.
Right. Because we now have the hacking ability for Ushio, so they're like, okay, we'll just do this again. And then we'll be able to win pretty easy. Except for, if everyone remembers from part 1, Shinpei has a mark on his arm where Heine grabbed him. And now she's time looping with him and telling Shide what's going on. So Shide and Heine had set a trap, and they kill Nagumo, and they almost manage to capture Shinpei, but Ushio kills him in time, and he has to loop again. So basically, all advantage is gone from time looping.
This was such a shock. Just that visceral scene of him with the sledgehammer and Nagamo on the ground on the street. Did not see that coming. But we come to find out, what was it? So when Shinpei met Haine in the sky during the festival, that's when she was able to connect with him, right?
That's when she started searching for him.
Okay.
And then when she, in the flashback where she was in Shiori's body and she reached over and
Right,
grabbed him,
marked him.
that's where she actually connected and made that mark. And I can follow you now.
Yeah. Because that seems to be a really big theme, is like observation.
Yeah. Man, what a scene. So good.
I'll save it. I want to. So in To Your Eternity, they mentioned stuff like observing and stuff, and so that's why I brought it up. Really. Anyway,
Okay.
In the time looping, he doesn't complete the time loop. He actually goes into a memory. This has happened to him earlier before, where sometimes he accidentally sidesteps into someone's memory during the time loop, and he sees Hizuru's memory from when her and Ryunosuke were kids, which is basically she's made a new ghost friend, and it's Haine, and she lives in the old clinic. And she's really nice to Haine. And so him and Ushio observe this memory, and we get to see like Shinpei's parents, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we found this new grotto. We're gonna go diving. That's what their jobs are." And us remembering, hey, that grotto. We remember what's in the grotto. That's where Hiroko / Haine's cave is. And so we get to see Haine as a very childlike being. She's very hungry. She's lonely. She has flashbacks of horrible memories from her past. And Hizuru has befriended her, but she stays away from the other characters. She doesn't like to be seen. So I do want to take this time now to talk about Haine / Hiroko, sometimes Shiori, sometimes Shinpei. Again, it gets complicated, guys. But what do you guys think of who was our primary antagonist and really becomes not the primary antagonist? But your guys' thoughts.
What a cool monster. Because can we talk about her backstory at this point? Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we find out that she was an alien, at least a non-sentient one, it seemed.
A rock.
Well, she copied a rock.
Okay.
Right. So like,
yeah. So we don't even know what.
Again.
Yeah,
she's
exactly.
the same as To Your Eternity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she comets down to the Earth. She then starts copying fish, and then she copies a whale, and then she ends up on the beach, and then she copies Haine. Interesting that she
then eats Haine.
Yeah.
Right.
Like a scene out of the Parasite anime.
So the only thing that I don't like about this is we don't really get any explanation for her powers beyond she's from space. Also, this seems like, we're not. This anime is not about video editing, which I was totally on board with your theory last time, Troy. So that was a little bit of a letdown for me, just because that's what I was banking on.
It does skew it into cosmic horror, though, and I always love a good cosmic horror.
I do too. That's why I love
Flash. The Flash, the pixelation just doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
Right. So this whole setup for who she is and like why she's so hungry and was really cool. And I also like that she goes from pure evil to, I'm just kind of doing evil things because A, it's in my nature, and B, I'm just trying to get home, to please erase me. It was such a cool journey to go on in a storytelling way. So I really like this character. She's very complex, and like some of her actions are just like kind of out of left field sometimes, which would make sense for an alien that doesn't know how to socialize.
Yeah. Especially for an alien that's so powerful that it has eyes that allow it to view multiple dimensions. Like this entity is seriously, like you're saying, Eldritch horror level. Like it is incredibly powerful. I'm a little bit mildly confused at the rules about the rules, just because like there is a point in time where we have Ushio as an eye, Ushio the eye, Heine, and Hiruko all existing at the same time. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how they all can exist simultaneously. I can explain 3 of them, but having Heine show up as that 4th one, that was one too far. I can't explain that one. And yeah, so having it be so complicated, they kind of lost me a little bit. And that, I don't think that's necessarily bad, because like you're saying, this is an alien. It's doing weird things, and maybe we don't have all the rules figured out.
Right.
But
like 4th dimensional being kind of stuff. Like, okay, I guess in the 4th dimension that works.
Exactly, right? Like, I mean, obviously, Heine and Hiruko are both coming from the same point, and so if you have a 4th dimensional entity that's like extruding into the 3rd dimension in 2 different points, and you're seeing 2 different perspectives of it, I guess that could actually work. So yeah, that's my new explanation. I like that. Thank you. But yeah, I really liked Heine as a character. Hiruko was a very interesting character, especially when she started de-aging. That was such strange visuals, right? Like it reminded me a little bit of what we have with Death Stranding, right? It immediately took me to Death Stranding. But knowing the rest of the context that this anime provides, it's so much worse. Like it's horrible. Death Stranding, I mean, at least from what I understand of it, from what I've seen and what I've read about it, it's not that terrible. Like the situation isn't horrible. Like the relationship between the baby and the host is not horrible. The relationship between the baby and the host in this one's horrible. And it's yeah, it's really fascinating though. Like they wrote a very, very it really draws you in, makes you think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. One of the best parts of this whole thing is this monster, and I was hoping it was a sea creature only, because like, hey, my thought was like something so deep and so down that it's like a life form we've never even considered could exist at that depth of the ocean. Like the Mariana Trench kind of level stuff.
The abyss.
But yeah, they went space instead. That's fine. It still went into the ocean, so I was close. Yeah,
and also this thing has its own dimension on top of all of that.
Inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. With its own little black hole sun.
Yeah, I love creatures like this. The reason I pulled out what I did, the Thing, Pennywise, these are also creatures from space who have their own dimensional properties that we just see as a entity. That's cool. I love me some cosmic horror, and I praised the shadows in the first half. We all did, how original they were, and they gave it an original source material, but gave us an answer too. And if you're gonna give us an answer, cosmic horror works as good as any other. So I'm satisfied with it.
I wonder if they're gonna fight the giant space turtle.
Yeah. That everyone's writing on?
No, that was a Stephen King joke.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a deep cut.
Deep.
He barfed up the world. Don't blame him. He had an upset stomach.
I mean, what are you gonna do?
That could be from Terry Pratchett. That's
So okay, so yeah, we're still back in that flashback, and we see Ryunosuke searching for his sister. We also saw we met Nezu in the flashback, who's the old sailor man who knows how to fight shadows and is immune. But this is before that.
We found out how he lost his eye.
Yeah, Ryunosuke is looking for his sister, and he runs into Heine, and then Shinpei affects the past and has Hizuru go to her brother. And so this is the second time we've seen the past get affected, right? Didn't he make a little bit of it? Anyway, doesn't matter. Keep going. Heine's eating her brother and copying the data.
Literally.
But a lot
no,
goes
no,
wrong.
no.
So when she sees her friend, Hizuru, Heine freaks out. And we find out we get told this later, but all we see is like her right eye pops out and then crawls away. But what happens is the human side of Heine that was copied from the little girl basically couldn't handle what she just did and ran away from the creature that's just following its instincts. Here we go. But also, she messed up the copying of the data, and it goes into Hizuru instead of herself. So that's why Ryunosuke, and she also messed up the timestamp, so it's 2 seconds ahead. And that's why Ryunosuke is 2 seconds ahead and living inside of his sister, and is technically a shadow.
Right. So it's not the spirit, it's an actual shadow.
Yeah. One minor correction is she didn't mess up copying the data of the boy. She rejected the copy because it was right before the eye jumped out. So Heine was still in control at that point and was like, I can't accept this, get it out. And it only went into Hizuru because she happened to be standing there. Otherwise, I guess it would have just been floating in the void.
Okay.
But yeah.
Jeremy's going to have to do that a couple times. I'll be honest, there's a couple times I was like, science hurts my brain a little bit.
Well, it's a very minor difference.
Shadows start attacking her, and Nezu shows up, and he's helping, but he gets copied. And then Ryunosuke takes over the body and saves Nezu, and that's how they get to know each other. That's why he's immune, and that's the end.
And that's where we find out that using those abilities actually dramatically injures her.
Yeah, like he breaks her ankle on her first just by jumping.
Rips her shoulder out of its socket. Yeah.
There's one other thing. So when Nagumo leaves the island, she sees Heine standing out watching the ferry leave, saying, when you come back, I promise you I'll kill you. Or the next time I see you, I promise to kill you. But again, this is the Heine she knew is no longer there. This is mostly now just the entity again. The human emotions have been separated. Shinpei completes his loop, and then we see Heine as Shiori, and she's like, oh, we've moved forward in time. He runs out of time. Time moves forward every time he loops. And they're like, okay, so we don't need to save him or preserve him. Let's just kill him a lot.
Yeah.
And so, like, it was cool that they're looping with him, but the fact that they're, like, getting information, and now the tables are completely flipped. Now they have the full advantage. And we talked about, like, it's cool that the villains were trying to keep him alive, and he's trying to kill himself.
Uh-huh.
But now, okay, the rules have changed. The tactics have to change to adapt to the situation. This was such a cool moment for me. I was like, that's pretty darn cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Shinpei gathers everyone. Ushio shares everyone's memories. And so we get Mio, Sao, and Tokiko. They're all hanging out in the gym. And Nezu is watching over them with a sniper rifle to protect them. So we're going to talk about these other characters. Mio first. Thoughts on Mio?
She was there. I liked her shadow better.
Troy's favorite character.
I have strong feelings. The English dub was a little rough with Mio. It's almost like Valley Girl. No matter what they're talking about, no matter how life and death it is, she's like, Shinpei. It's not quite Valley Girl though. It's not quite right.
I think what really bugged me about her character is she just ended up being more of a pawn of, if she dies, Shinpei tries to restart, because that's like the goal, is to keep Mio alive. And she ends up having a bunch of off-screen deaths that just don't matter. And it's like, oh, they won, time to restart. And it's like, she just, when she was interacting, it was very interpersonal relationship stuff. When I was like, yeah, but what are the shadows contemplating right now? So
don't care about her.
I'll say her writing was well done, and I think the scenes with her were fairly important as far as driving the story forward. I just didn't care about her.
I didn't have a problem with her, but she was definitely like just background. She no longer, especially in this half, regular Mio, human Mio, no longer really got much attention. Didn't really deserve it. And it's kind of weird because, like you're saying, they made her so important in the first half. Like everything rides on her shoulders. If she dies, it's game over. Essentially, the bad guys could kill her and force Shinpei to go back and loop. They don't even have to kill him. They just got to kill her. So it was kind of odd that she took such a back seat. But Shadow Mio stayed relevant through both of these halves of the season. And Shadow Mio was pretty good because she's almost like a tsundere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a tsundere.
Notice
whatever.
me, senpai.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know what I'm trying to say.
Notice me, brother.
Well, I mean, it's anime. But it also leads me to that question that we have, which is, why is Ushio's shadow so similar to her and everybody else's shadow? Well, I mean, maybe it's because it's the eye, and the eye does a better job of copying. I don't know, but
Mio specifically calls out that she smells like mom, or Shadow Mio does. And that's she is a part of Hiroko, so like that's why she has the copying abilities. That's why she has the hacking abilities. Like that, those are Hiroko's powers. So
yeah.
And also, Mio last season or the first half said that she can only make one copy, where Hiroko can make as many as she wants.
Yeah. And so I guess the copies are just more accurate that Hiroko makes. Well, not necessarily that Hiroko makes, more like that Hiroko becomes. So in this way, Ushio, when she made a copy of the real human Ushio, actually got a better copy. Because I got the impression that Shadow Mio was like the shadow of Mio, like the dark side of Mio.
Right.
But we don't see that with Ushio. It's very different. And that either means there is no dark side to Ushio, which is really weird. I mean, maybe, or it means that when Haruko makes a copy for herself, it's different in some way.
So the third shadow that we can kind of use to figure this out is the doctor's wife. We don't get much with her, but she also didn't seem like a off version of herself. She seemed very much her own self. Well, once they freed her from her control, right? That's the big. Once you're no longer controlled by Heine, then you're just the data that you were copied. And she's, again, this is just my impression, and we don't we never got to meet the wife, so I'm assuming, but she just seemed very normal, like Ushio. Yeah. So my only thought was that not that Shadow Mio is like a bad copy, but that she had so much other stuff she was doing in between when she was copied and when she was freed. But the wife was murdering her own husband, and it didn't seem to affect anything. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, the murder part was a direct
Hiruko override.
It was what am I trying to say? It was a direct command from Hiroko. Right. But before that direct command, we were under the impression that she didn't know she was a shadow.
Yeah. Right. Just like Ushio.
Right. And so even before that, she was very much Sao's mom.
So my theory was that, because they even pointed out that Shadow Mio was not allowed to go around the normal directive that the shadows have. She was given special orders, like she cut the bike brakes, but she wasn't allowed to just go murder Mio like she's supposed to. She was being very much used as a puppet and a tool, and that maybe that affected her, and that those different experiences have made her slightly different from regular Mio. The wife murdering her husband, though, I feel like that would have also affected her, and it's just not enough a sample size to know.
Yeah. Well, and it's just really weird too that even when she was freed, there isn't a single moment where Shadow Mio like breaks, fractures, like exposes any kind of behavior or personality that I would associate with human Mio. Like there isn't even one moment where we get a glimpse of, oh yeah, that's the same person.
Like she didn't suck at cooking all of a sudden or something like that.
Right.
And she also didn't like have a strong, attraction to Shinpei. Like,
Yes, she did.
It was evil, like a vicious.
yeah, but it wasn't like aggressive or anything. It was just like, hey, I like you. That was about it.
Now there were a couple of shots where her face contorted, but it was like she wasn't acting on it. The Shadow Mio just came off smarter, more reserved, more observant, more capable of understanding, and more empathetic, which is crazy because she's the killer, right? But more empathetic of other people. She could read them.
So to close this out and bring it back, my thoughts on Mio is that she was a really frustrating character. Kind of with you guys, that not much, but there's a lot of interesting stuff there that I feel like we didn't touch on because of Shadow Mio. She's the only one who has to deal with her own self standing next to her all the time.
That's a good point.
And it's basically like if your subconscious became a person and was standing next to you had to keep being like, oh no, that's my subconscious. Don't listen to that. No one needs to hear what subconscious has to say. That's fascinating stuff, and it does push Mio to make her confession. But she does, and then it's just done, and that it didn't matter. It didn't change anything for her. Like, we get that confession scene, and then it gives nothing to the story. It was just like,
that version of her dies. So, and then when we go back in the final loop, it's before the confession was ever made. Even though there is actually a little bit of an arc ending for her, and so, but it doesn't have anything to do with that confession.
No, she's going to reject him again.
No.
We didn't see the rejection.
She asked a
so
question.
We don't know.
Instead of simply saying no.
She asked that the first time.
I don't think so.
She asked, what do you like about me?
I don't think so, because I think what did you like about me was supposed to be a big pivoting point for them.
No, I swear in the first half at the festival, episode 3,
Really?
she asked, what do you like about me?
Maybe.
I felt like that was repeating exactly. I was like,
I think you're right. But it didn't finish out the scene, so we can only assume.
Yeah, but then they also point out like he confessed last year, which we never got to hear about. That I just got the feeling that
things have changed. So Ushio's alive, so maybe Mio knows she has no chance.
Yeah,
and so who knows?
Unless she kills her.
Ushio was alive last year. Yeah, our prophecy of Mio being the villain comes true.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like in the final moments, gets a knife in the back.
Yep.
So and Tokiko, your guys' thoughts?
I liked Tokiko. Her redemption from, being bad guy. Like I thought she was going full bad guy in the first half.
When she showed up, I thought she was mastermind. I'm like, oh, here's the boss.
Right. She had the closed eyes, so it's like, oh, yep, there's the smart one. I really liked her 2 shadows that were very loyal to her.
Yeah.
Even like they disobeyed Hiroko, which I thought was great.
Now that was because they got hacked, but we didn't get told that until a little bit later. So it was really cool in the moment.
Right. So is good, but he feels not as impactful as in the first half.
Which is unfortunate because I know we were both hoping that he would get a bit more screen time. And he really didn't. But yeah.
Yeah, he got his whole moment with his dad, and then that kind of resolved, and then he just didn't quite matter anymore, except that he was now part of this band of shadow hunters. But
so I guess that's really my issue with the whole thing, because like I said, he has the scene with his dad, right? But it doesn't do anything to the story, and I think again, I don't think it
did a lot for the story. What are you talking about? His dad's the reason Hiroko's even there and alive.
All right.
Okay, so their resolution between them two, yes, that didn't do much for the story.
Thank you.
But
we can stop there. That's all I wanted.
But it was a leverage point because before they had their moment, So's dad is basically a bad guy, and he wants the world to burn in order to get his wife. So after they have their moment, he turns around and starts helping them and gives them all the information they need.
No, that's not the moment. The moment
Yeah.
is when he shows them his mother's ashes. That's their father-son moment. And he's like, yeah, I wasn't going to pass this on to you. I was going to pass it on to your sister because you're too good of a person.
And they wouldn't have had that moment unless they had their
Right,
moment.
but that moment didn't
their
do
resolution.
anything for So. He
But-
didn't grow from it. He didn't change from it. It didn't impact that. The story is so full. It's brimming. It really is. It's so full that it doesn't have time for these character beats to breathe afterwards. Like,
So I got a question as far as arcs go. Is it a valid arc to have a character start in the correct mindset, question their values, and then return to the correct mindset?
sure.
I'd say that's what he did. Because he started with a good impression of his family and his father, and then went to like this horrible scene where he's like, my dad is a monster. Look, he shot my sister. And then things got repaired, and now he's like, okay, I have a realistic understanding of what my family is, but I think I can make something good out of this and still have a positive. So it kind of seems like it starts high, goes down, comes back up, and stays high.
The bullet points are there. Everything's there except it's very much like Shinpei stating out his flaw. The characters thought of a flaw.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's just not. It's not breathing through the story naturally. It's very much like, okay, we needed to have a conversation with his father about why he wasn't chosen. That is done. We can move on. That's goodbye. And then not so like later being like, no, I'm going to take the head. I'm going to be the head of his family or something. Just anything to show that moment had an impact on him. And it's the waves are rippling out organically through the story. And he's a side character, so there doesn't need to be much. But like you said, I had a lot of hope for So because I felt there was a lot of potential in the setup. You know, he was the son that wasn't told about the family business and had believed in everybody and was such a golden-hearted character, and then had to find out his family was the villains. And they have a scene to address it, but it's just bullet points. We addressed it. Okay, we're moving on. And again, I don't think it's bad writing. I think the story is just so full and brimming that to really flesh it out, you needed like 3 more episodes.
Yeah. Plus, if you were trying to do that and give him this great arc and everything, and you know that in episode 25 you're doing an epilogue for a different timeline where he's not going to remember anything that happened, what's the point?
Yeah, I guess that's true too. And maybe that's the issue again. So I don't think it's not that they're not doing it, but there's something missing from the aftermath of like it just. It's not naturally getting told in the story. It's like bullet point. We had the conversation that we were supposed to have. Moving on.
Yep.
All right. Otherwise, Tokiko is awesome. The only thing is though is her final battle. We never get to see it. We never see her like, I have to redeem myself. She just says, "Hey, I'm basically sacrificing myself," and we don't really find out if she did. What happened with that? Again, the bullet points there. But we had to move on to facing Shide.
She's not the main character.
Yeah. Same thing happened with Nezu, right? The old man.
Right.
Where he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to hold him off. And then it's like, oh, look, Shide's here. What does that mean? Oh, I guess Nezu's dead.
Yeah, Nezu's didn't make it.
No, because it was the other one. The one that was traveling with Heine.
Oh, I know that there were two. Right. But I'm pretty sure that one caught up to them first, didn't it? Maybe not.
I thought it was a different one that caught up to them, and then the one with Heine is the one they fight inside the grotto.
We'll get to that part.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
And does it even matter?
Right.
So Shinpei now is in the school gymnasium. All these characters have had their memories restored from previous loops, thanks to Ushio, and he gives this speech. He's the leader. This is where he states.
Before the speech, I love this part, and it's kind of important. That's the only reason I'm interrupting you.
Okay. Yeah.
He has a vision of the world ground kind of crumbling behind him. And this is the moment he realizes, oh, yes, I'm looping and my checkpoints keep getting pushed further and further towards the 24th. What I didn't account for is that the time between checkpoints is getting shorter and shorter, and that vision is him. If he doesn't spend enough time alive, he will fall into the void, and then he won't loop. Which I guess is worse than death.
He was playing a roguelite the whole time.
Yeah.
You just thought there was saves.
You said that correctly, because he comes back with knowledge.
Yeah. There's a little bit of persistency between the loops.
Yeah. If he didn't remember, it'd be a rogue light,
Yep.
Rogue light.
I
now we
didn't
just
know
need
those
to
were
see
two different things.
Yes.
Yep. And now we just need to see the isekai in Rogue. Go to the father of them all.
Nezu is killed by Shadow Mio. And then Shinpei suddenly is back in his kitchen making a sandwich. The episode just ends like he was talking, and then suddenly he's just in his kitchen. And we don't get to see this death. He doesn't even realize he died. He's like, wait, I just looped again? Because the shadows have decided, let's just kill him over and over again.
And they got Nezu's sniper rifle.
Yep, and they got Nezu's sniper rifle. Now,
And also, this is where we find out about the 50-meter rule.
Right.
Yeah.
So when he gets everyone back in the gym, does it all again, and they're like, wait, wouldn't they sniper you now? And he's like, no, because we have the actual sniper rifle, and if it was a copy of the sniper rifle, the bullet can't go. No copied object can go 50 meters beyond whoever made it. So that's a shadow rule. So
and Ushio can sense shadows that are close, like 50 meters or more. I don't know what her limit exactly of sensing is, but clearly that is within the limit. And so she'd know if there were shadows attacking them.
Right.
But in the last loop, she did not sense them. So whatever that range of the sniper rifle was is out of her range.
A real sniper rifle, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he tells everyone, hey, we're looping again, but also now there's a limit on the looping. If I die, I'm going to go. He thinks he has one loop with the amount of time that he currently has, one more loop. And he warns everyone about that. And then they come up with the plan. And basically he's out in the schoolyard, and this army of shadow creatures come marching in, all the townspeople that are shadows, with Shide and right now Haine, but right now she's Shiori.
What I liked about this is before the shadows show up, Shinpei calls it. He's like, they're gonna come hunt me, so this is the perfect place to do a trap. I really like that was called out by them.
Mm-hmm.
So they do lay a trap. He's like, hey, well, no tricks. Let's just have a fight. And then he runs away. It's like, all tricks, all tricks. And Shide's like, you guys are cheating. You said no tricks. What is going on? So in the course of this battle, and this is probably one of my favorite up there in the top 5 moments of the whole anime. We have Mio, and so in Tokiko, they defeat Shadow Mio. They manage to pin her down. Meanwhile, Shinpei gets Shide and Haine into the gym with help of Ushio. Ushio can now super fast travel by making her legs shadows and carry Shinpei around.
So this is the scene that I saw months and months and months ago, which I just hooked me as far as visuals. They're in the corridor, and Shide's about to shoot, or no, does shoot. Shinpei.
As Shinpei.
But this is actually Ryunosuke's 2-second in the future vision of him getting shot. And so he moves into the way of the bullet to take the hit. It's just so beautifully done, like the animation wise.
Yeah.
But then another layer on that is you find out Haine was like, I told you he would jump in the way.
Yep.
Yeah, I love the tactical game that's always happening. Anyway, they get him into the gym. They douse him with gasoline that Ushio has created. Ushio now has shorter hair because she can turn the strands of her hair into stuff, and she's been using it to create, well, all this gasoline. And Shinpei lights him on fire. He shoots at them. They shoot at him. He gets shot in the chest. But we find out later he's wearing a bulletproof vest. Smart.
Right.
I wanted to put that on earlier. He read on the internet how to make it. Ushio gets dragged into the fire by Shide, but then turns out the fire she was in was an illusion.
No,
She's
it's her fire, so it doesn't hurt her.
No.
She
That
was
was
an
not
illusion.
a real her.
Right.
That was just a wad of hairs that she made look and feel like her.
Oh, okay.
And so she was actually teleported behind him and punched through his gut while he thought he was holding her down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they see an arm in Shide, so this is where they figure out that forearm or Shide is a actual human. But
Covered in shadow.
Heine copies and absorbs all the air in the room, and which was great because the fire goes out instantly and the windows blow, and I'm like, oh, the oxygen just all disappeared, and Shinpei couldn't breathe. They find out if it's in a container, yeah, Shadow can do that, and the gym counted as
It's a
one giant container.
The implications of being able to create a liquid and that liquid still has the properties of whatever it was is terrifying. Because there's a scene later on where someone offers someone else some tea, and I'm like, oh no, don't drink that. You drink that, and then Shadow just explodes out of you.
Yeah, exactly. Chest burster Shadow.
Right?
Yep.
But yeah, so the result of this battle is that Heine and Shide get away, but they have captured Shadow Mio and they hack her, much like they already did with Gil and Rose, which are the giant babies that follow Tokiko around. And so now Shadow Mio's on the team, which again I love. The power dynamics always fluctuating. Who has the advantage? Who has the disadvantage? Very cool.
In the first half, Mio, like her mannerisms and like her serial killerness don't go away, which is fantastic. So even though she's disconnected and she's like sworn allegiance to this side, every scene she's in, you're like, is she gonna murder somebody? She's gonna stab somebody. Because she's always got that persona of I'm gonna stab you.
Yep.
So Shadow Mio explains how copying and birthing are two different things. Heine can give birth to as many shadows as she wants. All those shadows can give birth to one shadow, and then those shadows can't give birth to any shadows. So there is kind of a limit. Then they go to visit Dr. Hishigata, who's So and Tokiko's father. His house has completely been inside. Everything's been erased by shadows, and they go
pissed because he's told me to meet him at this time, and he's not here.
They travel down to the basement where the morgue is. Ushio's body is gone. That's something they could use because it would help Shadow Ushio. So human Ushio's body's gone, so Ushio can't copy her and get her data restored. And then they find a secret tunnel, and they go in it, and they find So's mom, who we learned is a shadow. His whole plan was, I'm going to turn my wife into a shadow so she'll live forever. And she's killing him on Heine's orders. They hack the shadow mom, so now she's the regular mom in shadow form, but good again. And they're like, hey, you need to tell us what's going on, or we're going to just copy your data and figure it out. And he's like, Tokiko, kill them all. And Tokiko's like, no, I'm on their side now. And so he shoots Tokiko.
Yeah.
And then Tokiko turns out actually is Shadow Mio in disguise. And then they do copy him, and they're like, no, we can't read him. He's immune. He's like, wait, I'm what? His whole plan was to let himself be turned into a shadow so him and his wife could live in whatever paradise world that Heine wants to take the shadows to. Now, is she taking them back to space or the bottom of the ocean?
It was implied ocean.
Yeah, that's the impression I got. But maybe not. Like, it wasn't really clear.
Okay. Yeah, so now he's really upset, and he agrees to start talking after this. Now, we never learn how his shadow died.
Right.
But I'm guessing, just because he's such a piece of garbage that it was Shide just messing with him, just like, and making it part of his armor, because we actually see Shide refix his armor by touching the shadow nurse and absorbing her into his mud, which is the dead shadows that he wears on himself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming
you're probably right.
That's how this went down.
Yeah.
So now that he's talking, him and So have a really important pivotal moment with each other.
Oh my goodness!
It's really
the
like
core
ties together.
Yeah, it's the
That
core of
storyline.
It actually doesn't happen until later. You're way off. He does reveal that if Heine dies, all shadows will die, including Ushio. Yeah, she wants to return to the ocean in a shadow paradise. I wrote that down, so it's the ocean. And then he has a list of all island inhabitants who have been absorbed by Heine, and he knows Shide's true identity. Oh, okay, so
Because we don't know it up until this point, right?
Right. We know his name is Shide. It's been hinted it's connected with the clinic somehow, but that's really all we've been able to figure out.
Is this where he describes the two families that some became doctors, some became temple people?
That's in the next episode. It's this same conversation, but it's hidden from us until we're face to face with him. It's revealed at the same time. However, so we're in episode 17, and the episode starts with Ushio walking in on a showering Miss Nagumo and wanting to feel her chest and getting to, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Right? Come on.
And then they have like a really actual important conversation right after that, and I was just so, come on, we're doing so well.
What color are your panties?
Right.
That night,
this moment, this matters a lot later on.
Yeah.
So everyone goes to sleep, and Ushio sees Nezu is sneaking out. She goes with him, and he find out in his home he has the shadow of his wife locked to the wall, nailed to the wall, and where he feeds her all this time, all these years. And he just wasn't ready to kill it yet. He knows it's not his wife, but it also kind of is. So he's there to kill it, and this was a really sad moment, but again, it doesn't really matter to anything.
But it started going nuts because we find out Hideko at this point has basically done a no holds bar on a lot of her shadows.
Yeah, he does say it's never acted like this before.
Yeah, and so this is one of the this is the same actions that So's mom was. That's why she was doing it as well.
Okay, so. Yeah, then we see Forearm absorb the Shadow Nurse. Shinpei wakes up the next morning and he realizes he's no longer as close to the edge, so he has more time for looping than he did before because he's actually moved forward in the timeline. And so they set out in teams to go shadow hunting for the day. And him and Ushio go to check out a teacher's home who they know was a shadow due to the funeral. Oh, guys, we got confirmation that Shinpei was copied at the funeral. We argued about that. He was. And in Shiori's house. It happened both times.
It was an update in Shiori's house.
Okay. I don't care. Yeah. So they don't find the teacher in her home, but they do find her out in the forest trying to kill kids. We get a flashback of Ushio and the teacher. This is where you don't use your fist for violence, use them to hold hands.
Unless you're going to murder children.
Yeah. Then the teacher doesn't live by her own rules.
Yep. So they defeat the shadows and they save the kids. There's a scene where Ushio talks in like a demonic voice, and I don't remember it being explained because Heine also talks in that voice later, and I don't remember them ever saying what they were saying mattered. Do you remember this? Oh, okay. Well, it did happen because I wrote it down.
Fever dream? Okay.
Look, I'm very lazy. I don't write something unless I absolutely have to.
Okay.
All right. Then he goes to the shrine to talk to the priest. whose name is Kirikiri, but we'll just call him Shide because it's Shide. So there's a lot in this conversation. Jason, I know you have an aspect that you want to talk about. I have something I want to mention. But basically, he sits and talks with them knowing he's Shide, but they're there to get confirmation because he has to have a burnt hand from the battle, but he doesn't. But he's like, it's got to be him. What drives me crazy. So we're about to find out this man is 300 years old. And he's like, man, I love video games. And for some reason, that's just weird to me. That this 300-year-old guy is like, no, I'm a video game nerd.
Final Fantasy VII was awesome.
Yeah, he's talking about how much I love. Okay, so I do. That's what I wanted to mention. He talks about how much he loves Final Fantasy VII. He's really excited for Final Fantasy VII remake to come out. So that puts a timestamp.
He's not that excited, apparently.
I know, right? He's gonna end the world first. True. That's a good point.
But because like what we know about Heine, that she's came down as a meteor, and I was like, oh my god, he sees himself as Sephiroth. That Heine is Genova, and that he is doing his mother's will, and he played Final Fantasy VII and was like, I totally get the One-Winged Angel. I don't know who this stupid cloud guy is, but One-Winged Angel is clearly the protagonist of the story.
Gotta do that.
That's what I wanted to talk about in the conversation, just because I love that little connection. But Jason, they talk about something that you want to talk about.
Shinpei asks him, like, if you copy one piece of data, or like if a person is copied one for one to another person, so you have two of the persons, are they both the same? Are they both originals? And Shide says yes, which got me thinking. It's been tickling the back of my brain for like days now. Like the idea that if I have 100101 and I copy that over here, it's still the same ones and zeros. Is there a difference between the two besides their creation timestamp? And if I have two Word docs, like I treat them the same until one's been edited differently than the other. So it's a very interesting idea that is a copy of something if it's exactly the same, because that's the thing we're working with Ushio's shadow. Everyone treats her as if she's Ushio. So yeah, I found that fascinating.
Mm-hmm. It is. I love this topic whenever it comes up in cloning stuff. I remember there was a book I read a long time ago where this kid started cloning himself, and the clones were imperfect, and so they started deviating pretty psychotically from him. There were some stories I saw or read that were really interesting, because even from that moment of creation, like you're right, that timestamp is the only difference. But from that point, they start deviating simply because they know each other exist. And so you get a very interesting divergence of how they're going to behave. Or simply even like if there's only one, knowing that you're a clone completely changes your behavior. There's a series of books called the Bobaverse that is a really good series of books that focuses on like clone identities and stuff, as these ships are really personalities that are duplicating themselves in space. But I guess the one thing that I would wonder about is when a shadow copies you, like you said, with, if it's physical data, 101101 or electronic, right? But I'm just saying, like, if it is something that we understand and we comprehend, and you know that you have copied that exactly 100% accurately, then yes. But what if there is a component that isn't physical, right? And I'm going to say, like, what if there's a soul? What if there's a consciousness that is attached to something that's not just your body? And what if the copy wasn't able to capture that because it's only able to capture the physical data? And if that's the case, it would explain why you have two distinct personalities, right?
Like the difference between Mio and Shadow Mio is the real distinguishing one.
Yeah, the real soul, the real consciousness, and then a duplicate that's a little bit hollow. So
it always reminds me of the bad guy in Invincible, where he's like, all right, you're the clone. No, you're the clone. No, you are the clone.
Yeah, clone baby. You guys had to have seen Mad TV skit. Arnold, clone baby?
No.
Oh my god, it's classic.
You
have
with
to watch
Tim and
it.
Eric and like all these just weird.
Dude,
anyways.
Mad TV's Clone. You have to look it up and watch it. It is so good.
Okay, so I want to weigh on the subject too. I have thoughts, guys.
Okay.
Troy, what'd you think about it?
So there is spoilers for The Prestige. Just comes up in The Prestige, and there's a recent horror movie where this happened. In the horror movie, I don't even know if it's fully horror, but he goes to an island, and if you commit a crime, you get executed. But if you're rich enough, you can pay to have a clone created, and the clone will be killed in your place, and you have to watch it. That's a very recent movie that came out. But there's something else where it was like, we're going to create an instant clone of you, and one of them will die. And it's a flip. It's really like a coin flip, whether you're going to be I know what it is. It was 9 doors, 9. It was like a anime visual novel puzzle story. And there's like 3 of them called 9 Doors. And it had to do with clones, but one of them is going to die instantly, either you or the clone. And does it matter which one dies, and does it matter which one lives, because it'll be instant copy, so they don't continue on together like you were talking about. And it's really 50-50 if you're the one who dies, or are you the clone, but doesn't matter. That always really bugged me, like, that's rough, because you technically have existed, you kept going, but did you?
But it's not you.
Right.
Your consciousness.
So when people start talking about copying and are they the same, my answer is usually yes, because I go back to these death scenes, and if I was created an instant copy, I wouldn't want to die just because another me is going to keep going.
Right.
So I consider them separate entities.
Like the Star Trek teleporter problem, right?
Yeah,
right.
With Riker. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Oh god, I forgot that happened. There's 2 Rikers in the universe.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I forgot about that too.
Yeah. And they go on to have very different careers.
Okay, back to the story. Are you good, Jason? Or did you have any wrapping points on your topic?
No, just that I found it very fascinating, because there comes a point where we find out a lot of people got copied, but society just kind of continued on as normal. And then the question becomes, if your spouse is replaced by a shadow and you can't tell the difference, is that still your wife?
That is
To
a
the
good
first
question.
wife, I imagine it is. Or is not.
Yeah.
Okay. You get to the part where, and I do want to praise the anime, because like what was that god anime we watched where the gods fought the demons? Do you guys remember that?
Oh,
and
Begotten Deities?
Jason, you didn't. Yeah, Jason didn't finish it because it got
really
bad with what it was showing.
Yeah.
Right? This villain backstory implies very similar things, but merely just implies with it. And as you think about it, you're like, oh my god, this is horrible, this is disgusting, this is a monster. But it doesn't make me watch him do it.
That's right.
It didn't shove it in my face and say, look at how horrible he is all the time. And isn't it kind of hot too at the same time?
Right. It doesn't try to convince you of that.
I wanted to be clear on that, because someone asked me when I was watching this, like, isn't that disgusting? I'm like, oh, it's totally disgusting, but it's off screen. And I can just hate him from afar and don't have to revel in his acts. But okay, so his origin story is he was there 300 years ago when Heine got killed by the whale. Hiroko, the whale. He took her in and had a child with her that is half human, half shadow. But then he figured out that she can transfer his consciousness into the baby, because it was an exact clone of him. And then he's kept doing this for 300 years. So it's just all the wrongs, just all of them. Child,
stealing the body.
I mean, so
he's the son, but he's also the husband.
Technically, this entity is eons old.
Hiroku, yeah. Or Hiroko.
But it is still disturbing that it's
Hiroko
a child's
is,
body.
but Heine is part of it, just like Ushio is part of Ushio.
Right. No, it's still disturbing.
Yeah, it's the Heine part that's so disturbing. Yeah.
He is the worst.
Yeah. Well, and he gets I want to say he gets worse, but you can't get worse than that. He stays consistently horrible.
Right. Okay, so yeah, he's like, yeah, oh yeah, totally me. I'm totally the bad guy.
Mm.
And Shinpei's getting ready to shoot him, but he's struggling because he's not the kind of person to shoot someone in cold blood. So
And he's
Ushio
like-
slices.
I like how he's like, and you were expecting to see a burn on my hand, but there's no burn. What are you gonna do
Yes.
now?
Something's
And he
wrong,
goes
Shinpei.
full like psycho bad guy. I
Yep.
love it.
Yep.
So
And
Ushio
but
slices his head in half.
which I
Mhm.
like at this moment, Shinpei's like, no, don't. Something's wrong.
Mm.
We need to step back and slice.
Yeah.
It's just-
Impetuous.
right.
And then Ushio is killed by another Shide who's been hiding in the room, who has a spear and stabs her shadow. And so she.
So I want, sorry, I keep interrupting you, but this was so, I love this scene because there's such a time gap from the last shadow that was killed that you almost, it's kind of shoved into the back of your mind that to kill a shadow, you got to hit their shadow.
Yeah. that's
So
right.
when the blade hit the floor behind Ushio, I was like, oh, who's that? What the? Oh, wait.
She's
And,
already
like, this-
dead.
There's like this couple seconds of like realization for everyone in the room, including the viewer. And it was just, what a great scene. Cause like all of a sudden it's like, oh no. And then, then officer, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Ushio's dead, leaving only her locket behind. And then this Shide kills Shinpei as he's being murdered as well. But while bragging, like, I guess Ushio's not coming back to the time loop.
Uh-huh.
And so Shinpei wakes up back when he saved the kids, except for now Ushio, of course, is not there because she wasn't there. She was, the looping with him was there. So she's erased from the moment. And then Heine shows up, and she was always there when he saved the kids. She was there as a crow, and she's like, "Oh, I noticed you don't have Ushio with you." And that edge of eternity thing that you've been talking about, that's back. So if I kill you right now, you're screwed. So she surrounds him with shadows, but then she sees his pocket glowing and runs away from it. Now we know the thing in the pocket is the memories of Ushio and that she's still conscious, still alive slightly. Why is Heine afraid of it?
Because Heine doesn't know it's just memories. Heine thinks
Oh.
Ushio's around and that she's a danger. And without Shide there, she's too afraid to engage Ushio.
She thinks they failed to kill Ushio.
Correct.
And that
And
they're-
so, because she's seen Ushio come from his watch before.
That makes
There
sense
might be some
earlier or later when they're like, they thought the plan was to create two Ushios. But
Right.
that wasn't it. They were restoring Ushio. Okay.
They just needed one.
Well, they couldn't even had to. But again, Heine doesn't know that. She thinks they have a full Ushio in their pocket and are trying to grab a second Ushio and have a two Ushio team.
They could have,
How?
because the second Ushio was still floating around in the water.
Would have had the trainer and all that. Well, I guess they could have passed memories. to
Past
her.
the memories. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that would still only be one. The locket can't become a full.
No. If she had not
she didn't die.
died, if she had not died
Right.
there at the temple,
Right.
then yes, they could have had
Yes,
to.
then they could.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
He tries to call everyone and warn them, and this is so mean. The anime, it shows him talking
Right.
like, "Okay, I need you guys to meet me here, and we're gonna do this." And then it goes back to Shinpei, and he's looking at his phone, and it says, "You can't call." And I was like, "Oh, did it get cut off?" No, he never could call. Heine has taken on Shinpei's form and has managed to copy his cell phone back in the third loop.
Yeah.
And so now can call everyone and puts them where she wants them. She sends Mio and So to one place and then everyone else out to this little mini island off the island. And that way, and so
I
he
like
has
how
this,
Hizuru is still suspicious of it. 'Cause
Yeah.
she's just like, this doesn't seem right.
Mm-hmm.
so Shide meets Mio and So. Shinpei gets the kids back to the thing, and then Nagumo goes to the island by herself and faces off against Shide. Again, a second Shide. We now know there's multiple of him running around. And her and Miyanosuke have this huge anime battle with him that they manage to win because she basically is like, you got to go all out. He's like, no, I'll hurt you. They can talk to each other now. She's like, doesn't matter. We're here to win this, and the only way to win this is for you to go 100%. So he does, and he's able to possess again, Shide's body is covered in dead shadows, so it's just an armor, and Ryunosuke can possess it and take it off of him, and they win the fight. But Shinpei, when he reaches the other Shide, Shadow Mio shows up with him and kills that Shide, and then they find Tokiko, and she's dying, and they realize, okay, things didn't go great at the beach. After they won the fight, so he loops, and then he saves Mio.
Well, he also found out that Mio had
Mio's
already
dead.
died.
Yeah, Mio's dead in this loop. So he loops. He goes and he saves Mio, and so when he gets back to the beach, because Shide has now all the memories from Heine, who looped, he wins the fight easy this time, and he's like, "Hey, thank you for looping. That made it way easier."
Mm-hmm.
And Heine and him run away because they see the thing in the pocket again. But Shinpei's getting ready to loop. He's like, "No, I gotta save her." And Mio's like, "No, you can't loop this time. you gotta stay here."
Well,
And,
because you'll fall off the void. You won't loop.
Mm-hmm.
So Mist Nagumo dies. Guys, a time looping anime where someone actually died.
Yeah.
One of their most powerful allies, too.
Mm-hmm. And this is on the tail of Ushio dying, and we still haven't been told that Ushio can be resurrected.
However, I didn't get sad, guys. I didn't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
A major character died in a Star Wars kids cartoon that I watched, lost a major character, and I got really sad. And I watched this, and I didn't get sad, and I'm like, there's something wrong with the characters.
Maybe the Star Wars one just sucked all of your sad emotion out, and there was nothing.
No, I watched this one first.
Hold on. So I'm pretty sure that's one, bias.
Yes.
But two,
100%.
I felt a lot of disappointment. Well, not disappointment, but sadness from the scene because it was so shocking. And the reason it was shocking to me was because when they looped, like everything kind of played out the same. And so I was just expecting it to be the same of her, like maybe mid battle, or she was fighting it, or she had just won or something like that. No, it spear through the chest. And it's like, no.
Yeah, that was my reaction as well.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, dang. Oh, cool. He's got Ryunosuke now. Because she transferred Ryunosuke over to him.
Yeah. I still missed her, though. Like, I would rather have had her than have him have Ryunosuke powers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't emotionally crushed like I should be when a character 20 episodes in is killed. I think there's
just something about with a looping anime. You've seen her die.
You said that last time.
Well, but you did. Like, how many more times have you seen her die, and in gruesome ways? Like, there comes a point where you do get like callous towards the death of these characters too.
But this time hit different for me because I knew he couldn't loop again.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, oh, she's gone.
I was more like, oh, that's so cool that they managed to kill a character in a time looping story. Clever, so clever, but the emotional impact just wasn't there.
Guess you need to watch more emotional anime.
Yeah, like his Niver. Okay, I really did think, man, a relationship chart would go so far in this anime because he loves her and she loves him.
It's not that complicated.
Well, Tokiko also gets involved, and
Tokyo seems to like Mio.
Yeah. So and Tokiko like Mio. Mio likes Shinpei. Shinpei likes Ushio. Ushio likes Shinpei back. Nagumo likes
the end of it.
Books.
Yeah. And killing things.
A sore back.
Yes. I love that they mentioned that. That's so dumb.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Shinpei talks with Dr. Hishigata about Shide having multiple bodies. He says he believed he used to preserve his bodies, but he thought they were all lost in the war. But somehow he does seem to be keeping all his old bodies around. so he can use. Now it has been mentioned if you copy his bodies, there's no data to be found, and that's not just the armor. That's his actual self has no data.
Is this where we find out that Hideko got injured in the war?
Maybe
Because of the fire.
Yeah,
And
so
bombs.
that's why he can't get any more new bodies. It's because she got hurt. And that's why he's so angry and raging, is because he knows this is the end. He can't live forever like he was planning to do. So since I can't live forever, everyone's coming with me.
You're right. As far as like that's his motivation, but what I remember is that it was because Hizuru started spending time with her, and then like she ate the body, ate her brother, and then when the eye split, and then there were more.
Yeah, he blames Nagumo
he
for
blames
everything.
Nagumo. He was pointing his hand at her and saying, "It's your fault." That's when she stopped being strong enough to do these things.
And I did skip over when Nagumo was pointing out to Heine, like, he's not on your side.
Mm-hmm.
And she even tells that to Shinpei. She's like, Heine's a kid. That guy's a monster.
Yeah, she asks Shinpei to save her. Like, don't kill Heine. It's not her fault. After everything that she's done.
Right. I know she ate my brother.
Yeah. But it's okay, because we're closer than we've ever been.
Mio points out that the locket still has Ushio in it, and he shows everyone that the locket actually can move. And it's reacting. So the reason that is it's just the memories of Ushio is locked inside the locket, the last remnants of her. But he remembers there's another Ushio out there floating in the water because she showed up the night of the festival, and that's the one he looped with. So she had to be somewhere in existence these past couple of days. There's been a second one just floating around waiting for him to find it. So that's the plan. The locket points them the way. They're going to go and get the body. But he comes up with a second part of the plan that we aren't supposed to be privy to, but I'm going to say it here. Basically, they can hide him in Gil because Rose is dead. Rest in peace. They hide him in Gil, and then Heine can't detect him. And they all hide inside Gil, inside of her grotto, close to it, but not too close that they'll be detected. So that way, when he loops again, this is the starting point.
And also, Hideko finds out that they want this Ushio, and she thinks, oh, they're going to have two of them. Yeah. So she sends out her minions to go after and like basically comb the desert to find her.
But since she can't sense them, she tells Shide, look for the shadow that's out there that shouldn't be there. There should be one shadow we don't have control of, which is Gil.
Yeah, one of them will deviate from the course of the rest, take off in its own direction.
Right. Which Gil does, and Shide chases after him, but they find Ushio. He wakes up Ushio. He gives her the locket. Her memories are restored. She wipes out all the shadows instantly because she can super hack now, and anything she touches,
she's got
dies.
Super Saiyan level 3 hair.
Takes out Shide's armor, and then Shinpei shoots himself.
Yep.
After dodging a bullet from Shide, who was trying to stop him from shooting himself, and he time loops with Ushio back into the cave, and now they're all set, ready to attack.
I love this because he's like, he even says to him, "Where do you think I came from?"
Yeah.
And I love that he's like, okay, if we time loop here, then we'll be in position when I come back to the attack.
And Heine, because Heine had even questioned, could they be in the grotto? And she's like, no, they're not ready yet. They won't come to there till they know for sure they can win. So we're safe for now, which is true, kind of. But they also knew they would be ready after this loop, so they went there early. Again, clever writing there.
4-dimensional thinking.
Good strategies.
Yep.
All right, so they go into the grotto. They have to get past a wall of mud, which is, again, is dead souls. They have fireworks to get past it. They leave behind Tokiko to fight a alligator shadow thing.
Yeah. Just some weird nameless shadow we've never seen before. I kind of thought that was a bit of a letdown for a, conclusion for her character for that loop.
Especially since it doesn't conclude. It's just, hey, go fight.
Yeah.
Bye. Nezu stays behind to fight a Shide. They go inside and they start fight. And now, right now, when we say Haine, she is appearing as Shinpei, and she's using Shinpei's form because he's really good at looking at the big picture, and she needs that strategy help to keep up with him.
Mm-hmm.
So they're fighting forearm, they're fighting Haine, and they keep chasing her around, and they trick her into going into a corner, and it's So who's able to use So uses the real nail gun, not the shadow one she could detect, and pins her to the wall. And
Yeah. And then doesn't Mio kill him?
Ushio goes in for the big punch, holds back a little bit because she suddenly has a memory of don't use your fist for violence. And then we see Shadow Mio stab Shide in the head.
Yeah.
So he dies. But then another Shide shows up and grabs the baby version of Hiroko.
So this is where we learn a couple of things that I did not know. Number one is when a shadow of her magnitude, I guess, the mother shadow gets injured, then the mother shadow doesn't like suffer a bleeding injury. She just de-ages.
Which happens to Ushio later.
It does, yeah.
Ushio grows younger,
but it doesn't happen to any of the others. And strangely, it didn't happen to Ushio before. Before, she suffered a bloody arm wound.
That's right.
So it's odd that it happened this way now. So I don't know. It's confusing a little bit, but interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so this other Shide grabs this slams the baby on the wall, and the baby's like, "Save me, Shide!"
Yeah.
He's like, "I don't need you anymore."
Baby doesn't have eyes anymore.
Hiroko is technically just a blot of shadow on the wall, and he opens that up and goes inside it to go into her world with the baby version of her
attached like via an umbilical cord on his shoulder.
And his whole thing is like he wants Ushio's eye. He now realizes Ushio has Haine's right eye, the same one that's in Shinpei, and he wants it. And then like it starts sucking everyone in, and Shinpei's like, "I'm going in there." Ushio's like, "You can't go in there. Humans can't go in there." And he's like, "No, I'm going." And Ryunosuke is like, "I'll take care of him." So they all go in. Those two.
Mm-hmm.
And then he loses Ushio, so he has to search around for her, but he has to let Ryunosuke do the driving because his body's too injured from Ryunosuke using it. And they find
Haine, right?
Yeah. Find Haine's ball, follow Haine's ball to Ushio, who's in a lot of pain, and then Haine emerges from her. And this is where we're explaining the right eye was the...
Oh, that's right. She emerged from Ushio. That's why there was a Haine manifesting. Okay, never mind. So there's an explanation for why all four are there.
Right. So mostly the right eye is Ushio's data, but Haine's original human data is in there too. And they have that's the reason this whole shadow has been good the whole time is because it's the good part of Haine and resonated with the good part of Ushio.
Mm-hmm.
World War II bombers start dropping bombs on them.
Like, wow, where'd that come from?
Because Shide can access her memories and needs this memory to do damage to them. And she hates this memory, but he's like, suck it up, little fetus attached to my chest.
Right.
But the Haine on the ground is like, I can freeze the memory for a second. So they do. And then Ushio runs up the bombs. And
which is cool.
Like Sonic style.
Yeah, they were getting some anime battle in here. She loses, but had kept some of original Ushio's hair. So she's able to restore herself and hits him. But when she hits him, she realizes the real Shide is not in there. He's remote controlling this armor. And so she falls down, and so now it's up to Ryunosuke and Shinpei to fight him, and she's like, okay, I can turn into a shotgun that can kill him in 2 minutes. So they have to fight him for 2 minutes. He loses his arm. He gets the crap kicked out of him, and he's like, okay, Ryunosuke, you gotta get into his armor and pin him so that I can shoot him. That starts to work, but then Shide's like, nope, that happened in another time loop. I've already learned how to stop this, and he kicks Ryunosuke out. Okay, so then Shinpei has to grab the shotgun, and he's entirely broken. He's like, no, I gotta still do it. And thanks to Ushio and Haine, the shotgun jumps like a foot into his hand, and he's able to dodge at the last second and kill Shide, who's going on about like, if I'm gonna die, I wanted to live forever and see the end of the world, but since I'm gonna die, I'll just make the end of the world now. But he refers to himself as a video game boss, which again is weird for a 300-year-old guy to have that context.
That is.
But whatever. Everyone has their own hobbies, I guess.
Hey, there's a guy in my raid group. He's 78, so
Oh wow!
Okay.
There you go.
he says he can't heal because it hurts his hands. So
My hands don't move that way.
I'm gonna start using that in Call of Duty. I'm too old to snipe. Someone else do it.
right.
That's great.
All right. So it's just weird. He always refers to it as like I know how to turn off the power of the console, guys.
Yeah. I guess he just genuinely really, really likes games.
Yeah. Okay. He's defeated. We see this cuts his connection with Heine, and then we see his original 300-year-old body, which is how this apparently works. His 300-year-old body has been preserved, connected to Heine this whole time, and using that as the way to remote control all these babies he's been making with Heine up to this point.
Yeah.
I thought it was just going to be like, hey, this one time she had twins, and so there was two She-Days.
Nope.
I thought that's why he was going to have 4 arms too, is that they were co-working the armor together.
That would have been cool.
I actually went back and checked. Does he have 2 arms now for some of these fights? Nope. All right. He's dead. So then Ushio goes to erase Hiriko. When she starts, they end up in one of her memories, the memory 300 years ago when she was a whale on the beach about to eat the girl. Shinpei actually scares the original human Heine away.
Mm-hmm.
And they realize that what Hiriko wanted was to come here and have the whale erased to change what happened in the past so that none of this would ever happen. And that's what Ushio does. Ryunosuke and Heine say goodbye to each other and promise to be friends in another world. And then Shinpei's like, well, when I go back to my human body, I'm going to die. So I want to just stay here and go into oblivion with you, Ushio, because you're going to die. And she's like, no, I'm sending you back. And then she, now fully in control of her right eye powers, time travels back, gives the phone message to Nagumo to tell her to come to the island, then goes forward and gives Shinpei the right eye, and then he awakens on the ferry, but he doesn't have the eye anymore, and he falls into Nagumo's chest again. But this time he's super happy to see her alive, but as soon as he's on the dock, he doesn't remember why. He doesn't even know how she knew her real name, and Mio starts spiking down towards him, and he gets ready to save her, but she stops, her brakes are fine, and he's like, why was I trying to save you? And his memories are gone. We find out his parents are alive, they're just out of town right now. He's there because Ushio called him and told him he better show up or she'd kick his butt. And he's still been gone for 2 years. But
It's no big deal if you do or don't.
Yeah.
But she would drag him.
Passive-aggressive.
She would drag him back if he didn't.
Right.
Yep.
She was coming to Tokyo if he didn't. So he meets and Tokiko are there, and then they meet Ushio, and she's mean to him.
Human Ushio, by the way.
Okay, here's the big one. Ryunosuke is alive, and he married Nagumo's best friend, and they had 2 daughters, Shiori, the original Shiori, who's fine and well now, and a little girl named Heine.
Yep.
That means
what the heck happened
Shiori's
to the pair, the dad?
yeah, Shiori's real dad from the other timeline, he's gone.
And that's why he's crying in the OP.
Maybe.
Hashtag
Yes.
justice for Shiori's dad.
Yep. Also, why does Shiori look the same if she's got a totally different dad? That's kind of weird.
Anyways.
Okay, so then he goes up to the shrine, talks to the Karakiri family there. The shrine now worships different gods. It's
actually a family. Not
And the
just
guy
one
that looks
dude.
like Shide, but he's like 80 years old.
Yep.
And then he finds out that Ushio lost her necklace, so he finds her on the beach looking for it. I really love the visuals of this scene. So there's this scene of them kind of starting to get romantic chemistry built together, and their anger at each other going away. But there's scenes of them like grabbing each other's shadows, and then at the last moment where he's like putting the necklace on her, their shadows are like merged as one. Very symbolic, and using the shadows as I was like, okay, that's pretty good. That's
There-
good stuff.
Even just like the first moment when he shows up on the beach, she doesn't notice him. She turns
sees
and
the
looks and she
shadow.
sees his shadow. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I
Yeah,
like
that was some good stuff. Then they get ready for the festival. Oh, he has a conversation with Nagumo about like his dreams. Him and Ushio have the same dream together. So he tells her all about it, and then that becomes her next book that she's gonna
I
write
love
called
how like,
Summertime Rendering.
she's so interject. She's like,
Yeah, in the middle of the festival, in the food stands, like I have a story.
got food all over her face. It's great.
We see So confessing to Mio.
Which
Again.
works this time?
Does not.
We don't know that.
Totally
There's no
accepts
way.
this time.
We don't know.
Everybody gets a happy ending, man.
And then Shinpei calls Ushio, who had to help carry the garbage up the shrine, right? She's like, I'm so hungry. Bring me some takoyaki
Takoyaki or something.
Takoyaki. I've eaten it. Takoyaki. And when he brings it to her down on the beach, she's like, wait, you need to get me way more than that. He's like, oh, because I promised you in the clinic back in part 1 that I would get you like 50 pieces of 10 or 150 pieces of takoyaki. And then they both realize that's in a different
And
timeline.
the fireworks start going off.
Fireworks go off. They have their memories, and she's like, welcome back. And he says, I'm home. And that's the end of the story.
So a nitpick. This is the real Shiori. Shadow Shiori went through all that. And a possible solution is Shadow Shiori. Huh?
Ushio.
Oh, gosh, dang it. You're right. Why am I saying Shiori? Shiori's the little kid. Shadow Ushio went through all this. This is real Ushio. But I guess Shadow Ushio, having that power of the observer, could have actually like pushed her memories just like she does to everybody else. That's what she probably did. Went back in time, pushed her memories into real Ushio. Okay. Now it makes sense.
I thought they were in the necklace.
Oh,
That's a good
I like
call.
that.
Because they both were touching it.
I was
Yeah.
half convinced that the necklace was gonna the last shot would be the necklace vibrating a little bit, like Shadow Ushio was still alive in there, and just making sure those two got along.
That would be cool.
What a great wrap up episode, by the way.
Yeah. I have one more nitpick.
Oh wait, no, then there's a birthday. See that the next day, past everything we've ever time looped past, Ushio's birthday, and we just see a cake and hear
It was like
everyone
the
celebrating.
day after Shiori's birthday. Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So my only other nitpick is, and I did go back and check this right before we started the podcast, and it says that there's still 700 people that make up the population of
I
the
was
island.
hoping they changed it. That would be
Yep.
clever if they did.
Yep. And so I'm a little bit sad because they missed the opportunity to like change up the character designs after, like on day 25, because so much changes if you remove Hiruko from the equation.
300
Right?
years ago, right? Yeah.
300 years ago. All the people that died because of the shadow sickness 300 years ago, maybe they didn't all survive because they were suffering from like some starvation issues. But are you guys hearing that?
Don't worry about it. We're at the end. No one
Okay.
cares.
Keep trucking.
So they were dying from like some starvation issues, but but there's nothing to guarantee which people would have died. That it would have been the same selection of people that Haruko made shadows out of, right? It could have been a different selection of people that died. So in the end result, what you'd have in this island is, even if it's the same amount of people, even if you still have around 700. The chances that you would have them all look exactly the same is just nil. There's not a chance of that, unless we're dealing with a fated world where everybody is just born to look a certain way.
And regardless, 300 years of Heine preying on this island.
Oh yeah.
Even when she had the little girl inside her, she still gave obviously into her nature once in a while. And then after Nagumo and the Ryunosuke incident, she was clearly feeding constantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the doctor was bringing bodies down to her. So how many of those people would still be alive?
I think those were all usually natural deaths that they would feed her.
Do you think the detective was a natural death? The detective from the
Oh
north?
God, I forgot about the detective.
Yeah.
I think I had like 1 5-minute scene.
Yeah, and then they killed him. And then
Yeah.
pink-haired girl killed him.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyhow,
right, let's go to final reviews. Jason, you go first.
The animation is not quite as good, but it's near on par with Chainsaw Man. Like it's really good. The music's well done. The story writing and story beats are fantastic. The characters are pretty good. I mean, I will admit there's some areas that I could have seen some improvement, but like you said, this is so dense, it's very difficult to find time for some of these resolutions. I love the way they wrap this up. I don't feel like I'm missing anything by seeing this last episode. This is a 5 altogether. Like this is going to be like in a top 50 for me. Like it's really, really good.
Yeah. Absolutely loved it. I love how it plays with so many like I guess they're tropes now with looping anime. And it's hard to say that, but I guess it must be tropes. But and how it surprises you, it constantly keeps you invested, it ups the stakes. It doesn't let you get bored with how they're going to solve the problem or what new issues or problems have been raised by the bad guys. And the bad guys are smart. The bad guys are actually, they've got a lot of agency in this anime. And you don't always see that. Most of the time in anime, you have a bad guy stay on a trajectory and it's up to the hero to like move around that trajectory. But the bad guy doesn't really have to adjust his strategy as much. This has just been fantastic. As far as the characters go, I agree. Like it definitely focused more on the back and forth strategizing and world building than it did on the characters. And I'm okay with that because those are the things I love. So this is a 5 out of 5 with absolutely 0 caveats. I don't even care about the 700 population and all the people that shouldn't be there or should be there.
Nice.
This is awesome.
I stand by my issues. Where I think it fell short, but it's a 5 because everything else was so good. The landing is one of the best landings I've seen in a long time. That 25th episode definitely pulled its weight, but hey, more power to it. So yeah, I wasn't super sad when a character died, but I was super invested the entire fight that they were having up until her death, and I was invested when she died, and I was invested after she died. I just didn't have the emotional resonance, but everything else is so crafted. It's so well crafted that I can look past this thing that even again for me is usually an important thing, but there's enough here that it definitely deserves a 5. All right, just a reminder: our next anime is going to be Trigun Stampede. We will definitely be comparing it to original Trigun, so it's going to be a little bit of a special episode
in our mini-sode.
Oh, that's right. We're doing a mini-sode. I forgot.
So we're going to try not to during.
So no comparisons in the main
That's going to be hard.
Okay.
Then we'll do a compare and contrast.
In our regular podcast, it'll be a very regular review where we'll not talk about original Trigun at all, and then we're gonna do a mini-sode where we pull the two next to each other and contrast and compare. That's our goal. I'm sure we'll muck it up.
Yeah.
If you would like to reach out to us, talk to us about Justice for Shiori's dad or anything else that came up during this podcast. You can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast. You can contact us on our website, theanimebakaclub.com. Hit the contact us button or leave a comment wherever you found this podcast and it comes back to us. Thank you all for listening. I think we are ready to close this loop.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Sayonara.